Last Seen Alive was directed by Brian Goodman and stars Gerard Butler, Jamie Alexander, and Russell Hornsby, just to name a few. And it tells the story of a man named Will, who, along with his soon to be ex wife, is traveling when she mysteriously vanishes at a gas station. He delves into the town's criminal underbelly while running from the authorities in a race against time to find her. So, for the most part, Gerard Butler is always good for a few entertaining hours, Law Abiding Citizen, most recently Greenland, which actually was a kind of sleeper hit for him. He's always fun to watch in these types of roles. So, I saw this movie pop up, Last Seen Alive, and I decided to give it a look. I figured, it would be a typical Gerard Butler thriller type action movie, and on some levels it is, but it's not. What should I say about this one? It's not what I expected. I was hoping for something more along the lines of Taken. And what I got here was like a watered down version of much better films that have done this same premise, but with a lot more energy to it. So, Last Seen Alive. And guys, when I tell you, I struggle to remember the name of this movie. Like, I see it, and every time I walk away and I'm like, okay, I have to talk about this movie, I have to go on IMDb because I forgot the title. I don't know why. Last Seen Alive, it's just not sticking in my head. Taken is so much easier to remember. And I'm sure that's a movie a lot of people might compare this with. But the difference here is, unlike Liam Neeson's character, who has a particular set of skills, Gerard Butler here is just an ordinary guy. He's married to Jamie Alexander's character. Of course, Jamie Alexander would be known to some from Thor. She also had that television show, I believe it's the one where she has all the tattoos on her. What is that called? Blind Spot, I think. Yeah, she plays his wife here. She has a very small role here, guys. She shows up like in the beginning and then disappears and then shows up in the end, right? So they're driving together. They're talking about their impending divorce. They pull up at a gas station. She goes in to use the bathroom to get some water, and she's taken. And of course, he's an ordinary guy, so he does what any ordinary person would do. He looks around for her. He's asking around for her. And the film does do a decent job, I feel, of building on that tension. Or maybe I should say Gerard Butler does. I do think he sells, this concerned person who is like, what the hell is going on? She was just here. He calls the police, and in this small town, nobody's really taking him seriously because, it's a grown woman and they figure, well, she'll show up, that sort of thing. But I think one of the things I think this film sells well is that sense of that gut feeling something is very wrong. You do feel, as I said, he carries this movie in a lot of ways, and he does sell that sense of urgency, that sense of what would happen to any of us if, God forbid, a loved one goes missing. And you're telling yourself maybe there's a logical explanation, but in your gut it's wrong. I do feel like the film, to its credit, that tension remains in this movie. And as he starts to get on his own, it reminds me of that. Remember that movie Halle Berry was in, where she has a young son? I can't remember the movie, and her son is abducted, and she doesn't wait on the police. She goes after the person immediately. It's somewhat like that, where he's realizing that of course they question him as a husband, and they're asking all sorts of personal questions, and you can tell they're wondering if he had something to do with it. So he decides to go out there and look for her on his own. So the film has those elements in it, and Gerard does his best to sell those elements. I don't feel like he's sleepwalking through this. I do feel like you will connect with his character, So the acting on his part is quite strong. Everybody else, not so much. They're kind of just doing what they have to do. You never really get a true sense, like from the cop. He's fine. I actually like the actor a lot. I miss that television show Grimm so much. I really wish they would continue it. Yeah, he's here. He's fine in the role. He does get to do a little bit more than just be, this cop looking around for her. He does show some emotion at some point, but really and truly, it's all on Gerard's shoulders here. There's not many other people to play off of. We meet the bad guys, and they're not. We never really get any idea of the motivation of why they decided to grab her. I was waiting for some big reveal, something deeper than surface level. Well, they kidnapped her for money, but it really was just about that. There was nothing else going on, and I feel like the movie could have benefited from a couple of twists and turns in that way. We do get a very, very, I think it's the strongest part of the movie is the sequence where he sneaks into this sort of meth lab area, where they're cooking drugs to look for her. And I feel like that is the strongest part of this movie. It's well shot, it's well paced, and it's where the tension is the strongest in the film. It's the only part of the film that really feels that level of energy. Everything else, it just, when the focus is not with Gerard Butler, you lose all sense of urgency in this movie. Everything else just falls flat, and you're just waiting to get to the next scene. A movie I could think of that did this whole premise so much better, 1997's Breakdown with Kurt Russell. If you can see that movie, I highly recommend checking that out. It's a similar premise. Instead of ex-wife though, it's a man and his wife are on a road trip and she goes missing. And the messed up part of that there is that everybody's acting like they've never seen her. They don't know what he's talking about. So you get this sense of everybody's in on it. And I love it. They do that here somewhat. But you never really feel like everybody's in on it. You never get that level of paranoia going here. It's pretty by the numbers all the way through, and the ending is the most anticlimactic ending I've seen in ages. And I've been watching some really meh films of late. I can't seem to find anything that's making me feel inspired, except for, of course, the very, very awesome and amazing Everything Everywhere All at Once. I absolutely love that film. That film is like a 9.5 out of 10 for me. But besides that, everything else just feels so uninspired. And I'm sorry to say, this movie, Last Seen Alive, you see, I'm not even pretending, guys. I swear I keep forgetting the name of this movie. I don't know why. Last Seen Alive, it just does not feel inspired. It feels quite ordinary. It feels very by the numbers. Poor Gerard is trying his ass off in this movie, but nobody else is. And there's not even enough time put towards the relationship between him and Jamie Alexander's character for you to care that she's gone missing. That is such a big no-no. But Greenland, what they did there, besides all the the destruction and the world stuff, is that you do spend enough time with these people as a unit that you don't want them to die. By the end of the movie, you're rooting for this family. You're afraid for them. You're afraid. You keep telling yourself, oh my God, somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to die. Somebody's not going to make it to the end. And that pulls you in when you're that invested. Here, with the exception of Gerard Butler, there is no investment. We don't even spend enough time with these two people as a couple to care that she goes missing. She goes missing, the movie starts. She goes missing in like the first 10 minutes of the film. So they could have spent some time with this family, this couple, maybe give us a few scenes of them talking together more, stopping to eat somewhere, reminiscing. All they had to do was give us just maybe 15 minutes of these people as a couple. Maybe some flashbacks, The flashbacks do come, but they're in the middle of the film, so you really don't care at that point. It's just not well structured. It's very generic, and one person is trying to carry this movie, and unfortunately he can only do so much. So Last Seen Alive, geez and ages, I give this movie like a 5 out of 10. It's not terrible. If you want to see it, if you miss out on it, it really would not matter, unless you're like a Gerard Butler completionist and you have to see this movie, then feel free to. But this is a lot of nothing. This is a Lifetime movie of the week sort of thing. So it gets a 5 out of 10. And that's it, guys. So if you've seen some really fun action thrillers of late, let me know. Let me know in the comments below, because I'm looking for something entertaining to watch, besides television. The television shows have been coming at us fast and furious. There's been some really good stuff out there. I am still trying to catch up on Stranger Things, I know. But I get caught up with some other shows, and I have a list. So I'm working my way to it. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button. It's always appreciated. If you're new here and you'd like to subscribe to my channel, first of all, thank you. And second, you can click on my mug right about there, and you can check out past reviews if you've got the time. So until the next one, guys, and I promise I'll remember the title. Bye bye.